Am I dreaming? Is this thing on? Is that for real? Huh. Flying cars have been a pipe dream since the late 1950s. Popular mechanics made the most of these garage dreamers. And so the news this week from Joby Aviation may bring the magazine back, and we're all going to wake up to a new reality. Joby's one of the few manufacturers that we've seen that actually has something that flies. That's not just paper, actually kind of tools around. The real news is that there's a lot behind those little snippets that we've seen on social media. They're the first eVTOL to achieve authorization from the United States Air Force for a military airworthiness certificate. That is absolutely huge. It shows the Air Force is serious about the technology. It shows that the technology has actually been through a lot of testing and demonstrated, although this has all been relatively in secret. They actually fly in a quarry out in near Santa Cruz, California. So lots of secret dark things that have been checked out, but obviously pretty awesome stuff. To top it off, also they joined the FAA certification program as an airplane that will be formally announced in the Federal Register, but it's been approved. And they even finished the acquisition of Uber Elevate, and Uber Elevate took the UAM world by storm this last couple of years by having all kinds of great ideas on a business model and things like that. Uber has now purchased them, which is quite a big deal because it connects people and cities and how that'll all work, and so it really strengthens their business proposition. But the impact of all this, what does it really mean for our industry and things like that? Well, it's really cool. It's all changing. It's keeps moving forward. But think about air traffic control. I mean, these things fly at best at speeds of a Cirrus 22, a single-engine prop plane, and they don't exactly fit with a Boeing Max. But right now, without a vertiport AC, they fly in and out of airports. And if it's an airplane, they get service first come, first serve like everything else. It's the same dynamic that we thought about with very light jets many years ago. They just don't fit because the whole system has been designed. Airspace, tools, everything around 737 performance, Airbus 3820 performance. And so controllers are going to have to deal with that. Our systems are going to have to deal with that from algorithms and tracking, and not quite set up. So there's lots of things that have to get done in order to let them scale. There's ideas on how to segregate them, but as we've seen with drones, you might have twice as many flights of these kinds of aircraft as you have with traditional aviation, and who should get priority, the majority or the minority, or how you want to play with that. So it's even policy decisions at the forefront of all this, all being driven by great advances in technology. And there's big competition. So obviously the U.S. would like to be first. Last week we talked about how drones could deliver, and Europe could be first in something, but Singapore already has a plan on how they want to use urban air mobility, and they are going to use the Velocopter. It's a German-made machine, which we've also seen fly, but they're selling tickets. So for a 15-minute flight, that's $364, and that's a pretty good deal to get across Singapore, because you couldn't do that in a taxi if you wanted to, so it's a cheap way. So they're selling tickets. You can get them online now. Whoa. Raytheon at the top of the DoD leaderboard again. Seems like Raytheon's got a pretty solid influence at the top levels of the Department of Defense, as President-elect Joe Biden has nominated retired four-star General Lloyd Austin, who's a member of the board of directors at Raytheon, to be the secretary. It's very cool because Raytheon was former Raytheon individual, head of U.S. business development, became the Secretary of Defense under President Trump, and before that under President Obama, it was the Deputy Secretary, came out of the Raytheon Business Development Organization. I mean, it is a revolving door big time between Raytheon Roslyn and the Department of Defense. At least they don't have to buy different houses because they already live in this area. So Thing is with General Austin is maybe there's a little controversy with him. He's got great credentials, has real battle experience, but he hasn't been out for the required 7 years. So you have to be out 7 years, or you need a waiver from Congress. Who knows what this Congress will be like? Still waiting for the Georgia election, and then they have to give the blessing for the waiver. So we'll see if that all plays out. Hey, some bummer news. One of the greatest and really last aviation heroes of our time, at the ripe old age of 97, Chuck Yeager passed away last week. Faster than the speed of sound. It was kind of interesting, his portrayal in the movie The Right Stuff, but a great aviator by any account, and part of our history has now passed. Disappointing. Sad day. Hey, the land down under. Hey, Australia really wants to be in this urban air mobility game. They don't build anything, and it's not like they have a lot of urban sprawl. It's a great place to go do some flying and things because they have straightforward regulations, and they even provide incentives, and so people go there to fly. It's where Google Wing, put out their first burrito delivery drone. It does have a modern ATC system, so Australia is always something to watch. They might have the last of the most modern ATC systems, which is being installed by Thales. So they coordinated a urban air mobility concept with the Aerospace Industries Association a couple months ago. Pretty normal, very much mirrored what NASA had done, but they wanted to have their own. And now they have another one. I guess that one wasn't good enough. Embraer X, since they split off from the deal with Boeing, has had to find its own path. And Embraer X is their urban air mobility division. And they landed in Australia, and they expect to start drone operation or urban air mobility operations. It'll be a drone, actually. It won't be a piloted aircraft in the near future. And so in order to do that, they built their own concept of operations and are working with Australia, and I have resent it all out so that everybody can comment on it. And so what's the big deal about that? Well, the ConOps, helps drive regulations, helps drive what the business model really is going to be. And these aircraft manufacturers are really pushing on the concepts to make sure they build something that can actually fit in the system. What's interesting on this one is they don't really have agreement with the ANSP about whether they'll fit. They've just compressed everything, and the whole thing will take place below 1,500 feet. So if you have small drones up to 400 feet, you have UAM between, let's say, 500 and 1,500. That's 1,000 foot. How do you get all that in there? Does it really scale? Seems like a goofy long-term ops concept to me. But the first tabletop exercise for some of these operational concepts will actually take place this summer. Again, we hear Joby in the news that they'll be the only ones providing an aircraft for the exercise, but at least things will get started and we get to visualize what's supposed to happen. Hey, this is getting kind of old. Leidos is getting to be kind of like the Kentucky men's basketball team with the winning streak between 1943 and 1955 of something like 130 games or something. Quite a win streak for the Leidos team. TFDM, Flight Service, ORS, Enterprise Information Display System, and now NISC-4 valued at $1.766 billion. Outside of STARS and TFMS, there's only a few areas left for them to compete in. They're going to go after FENS. They're going to go after the latest in what's called, for TFMS, which is now called FMDS. And thank you, Ann, for keeping that correction, because I keep spinning those letters around. And so, if they grab any one of those, we might as well privatize the FAA, because they're going to own the whole infrastructure. They're well on their way. But as an aside, the one thing they didn't win was something they didn't compete in, which was the Program Support Services contract, which went to LS Technologies, Human Solutions division of Oasis, and SAIC, and Small Business Award went to the Regulus company. So they didn't get that one, but those are the people that will be supporting them, which, if they win the rest of them. Hey, lots of pressure on the Chinese. got taken out of NDAA, but the House of Representatives sent a bill to the White House for increased scrutiny on Chinese company trading on U.S. exchanges. It's really targeted at Alibaba, which is Amazon's Chinese, rival of sort of the Amazon catalog. It shows bipartisan support for nationalism, and we do expect probably some softening of foreign trade issues with a new administration, but there is definitely going to be a strong retention of Buy American Act issues and sentiment. And I think we're going to see a lot more complex language around how we deal with Chinese products and influence. It's pretty clear about certain countries, including Iran and things like that. But China's kind of been left off those no-can-do lists for lots of great reasons. I mean, it's where we get a lot of stuff. So, we'll see how that plays out. But the Department of Defense has given some indication that they're pushing this as well. It's not an NDAA, but they've only allowed 5 drone manufacturers permission to sell to the U.S. military and other federal agencies. They did have a ban on Chinese drones. None of the companies have those drones in that list. The list is Skydio, which has a really cool recreational autonomous drone, does some really cool stuff. All of these are very small. Vantage Robotics, Altavian, Teal Drones, and they tested those for 18 months. What is really interesting is that along with the US-made ones, Parrot, France, also has provided a drone that has been approved, and you can find mine down in the Caribbean, about half a mile offshore and about 200 feet of water, because that's where it went by accident. So if you want one, there it is. Mike Ball had a great career at Northrop Grumman. They make some really cool stuff. They're the bomber manufacturer. They got upset at the FAA a long time ago and kind of got thrown out of the party list and haven't really ever made a big comeback. They've dabbled here and there. They've got some things that they do. I'm not sure they want to be invited to FAA party. But now that deal is totally sealed, pretty much forever. Call it forever. Veritas Capital has agreed to acquire the section that does FAA kind of stuff, Northrop Grumman's Federal Information Technology and Mission Support Services. That's a mouthful. For $3.4 billion. And so, including, they do FTI auditing, they do those the aeronautical information is part of that, and they're expecting to merge that with the new services company called Peraton. In the next 2 years, FAA has some really big IT programs, and they're valued at north of $500 million at least. And I think we're going to start seeing Peraton show up, and that's where we'll see our former friends at Northrop Grumman show up, because that's getting to be a hot topic over the next couple of years. Okay, I need to start, guessing about what the new administration is going to focus on for transportation. What do we think about that kind of stuff? What's likely to be the focus? Some actions. And we're seeing, companies trying to get aligned, particularly in the area of environmental initiatives. The car industry has come out real strong about, wanting to be even more increasingly compliant with emission standards. They want to reverse course and get back on the train with California standards, and we're seeing a little bit of the same thing with aviation. Aviation historically uses carbon offsets to stay in compliance with growing environmental regulations, so they pay to pollute. But this past week, United broke ranks and pledged to reduce its greenhouse gas impact to 0 by 2050. that's kind of amazing. They plan to leverage investments in some venture capital that draws carbon dioxide from the air and then dispose of it underground. Don't ask me where it goes underground and what the long-term implications are, but obviously somebody thinks that's a really good idea to reduce pollution. But it's supposed to do the same as 40 million trees do. So it's fascinating that that is a method of leadership that United is proposing. I don't know if it will create a competitive advantage, but certainly it puts it in the better stead of the administration. And at a time when you need a CARES package, at a time when you might need payroll relief, at a time when you might need some loans, that's probably not a bad plan. Good for the planet, good for business. I just wish they could really figure out how to keep those little pretzels that they hand out in that bag, that sealed bag, from going stale. Now that would be something. So Airbus isn't fixing the pretzel issue, but they are jumping on the environmental bandwagon. They announced a Zero-E program, which would construct a hydrogen-powered rotorcraft that can be retrofitted into the current fleet. Now, Airbus has about 50% of the rotorcraft in service today around the world, so this is a very big deal that you could take out current turbine engines, put in a new hydrogen engine, and have a super fuel, environmentally friendly rotorcraft. They're already too noisy, but they also put out a lot of pollution, so if you can stop the pollution, maybe we'll be okay with the noise. And maybe that's a good deal. Maybe that's a good deal. Good for the planet, good for business. Hey, the way big initiatives, even at the FAA, are handled, they go through the Domestic Policy Council at the White House. For example, the Domestic Policy Council weighed in heavily about how NextGen would be handled at the FAA when we started that, after 2000, 2001. They set the priorities for agencies like DOT and FAA, and President-elect Biden just nominated Susan Rice, who was the who was a national security advisor and also UN ambassador to lead the Domestic Policy Council, and so we can continue to see this focus on the environment, as she was part of the Paris Agreement on climate change, which we're probably going to go back into. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.